What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, back with a WWE/wrestling topic. And I'm here to talk about why the WWE and wrestling itself and the landscape of wrestling and entertainment is in trouble when Lesnar and Cena leave. There's a number of reasons why the WWE is in trouble when Lesnar and Cena leave. I'm going to break them down right here. But we all know that the WWE's ratings on TV haven't exactly been great, and they've most recently been at a pretty much an all-time low. Wrestling, it's a pure fact, has never been less popular on the mainstream stage than it has been today. And I really don't think it's getting better anytime soon at all. Because we have John Cena and Brock Lesnar, the two biggest stars in wrestling, that are at the end of their career and are about to hang them up. This week is SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar has stated, and if you're watching this after, he's stated that he may leave the WWE if he does not retain the WWE Championship. All news is reporting that Brock Lesnar wants to return to the UFC, and I don't blame him. He's going to face Jon Jones. He's going to make a lot of money doing it, and I don't blame him for doing that whatsoever, and you shouldn't either, because the guy's got to go get his money, go make his money, and he's going to be in a legitimate sport to do it, and he could also build his legacy if he does beat Jon Jones, but that's a whole different topic. Also, John Cena. John Cena is not going to be around wrestling that much longer. The guy has had opportunity after opportunity to be in movies, TV shows, the ESPYs, Saturday Night Live, whatever it may be. John Cena has mainstream exposure, and a lot of people seem to like him now in Hollywood, and it seems like John Cena is going to get more opportunities to do other things, and as soon as he gets those big opportunities, the same way that The Rock did, he's going to be right out of the door, and he's going to be gone. That's just the way it's going to be. John Cena has had a long career, and actually, we could blame John Cena for part of this. I think some people will. And the first point I have is that the WWE has no stars. And I've stated this a lot in numerous rants that I've had. But the WWE has been unable to create stars for a very, very long time now. And they don't have any stars with any name recognition. And once Lesnar and Cena leave, they are left with legitimately zero wrestlers that have mainstream appeal or mainstream attraction or mainstream recognition. No people, if you went to a side random city street in New York, wherever it may be, you go to a city street, you ask, can you name me 5 wrestlers, to any random person walking across the street that's not a wrestling fan, they will probably name you 5 wrestlers. And this is in 2017. The Rock, obviously, he's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest superstar. He's obviously the biggest superstar that's come out of wrestling, but he's also one of the biggest guys in Hollywood right now. Hulk Hogan is very famous and will probably always be famous until he dies, and probably even after that for a while. So everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is, being really the face of wrestling for such a long time. John Cena, I would probably put third on that list because he's the face of wrestling right now, and everybody knows him from Saturday Night Live to the movies to the other stuff, and to just the wrestling, the prank call even. People know who John Cena is. Also, Brock Lesnar, people know him from his MMA days. They know him because he was an MMA wrestler, a world heavyweight champion, and he went back to wrestling. Also, the last one is probably Stone Cold Steve Austin, because he was one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name, during the biggest era of wrestling history. So they would probably know Stone Cold, but even Stone Cold, I feel like some people wouldn't know who that is. But most likely, a lot of men, at least, would know who Stone Cold is. So that is my point on no stars. The 2 stars that are in wrestling today are in that top 5 right now. There's other wrestlers like Macho Man and Shawn Michaels, maybe Undertaker, obviously, Andre the Giant. People would know other wrestlers, but wrestlers today, there's already 2 of them. The most likely to come out in the conversation of the top 5, 2 of them wrestle today, and 2 of them are going to be gone. So That is huge. The last wrestler that really had mainstream attention at any level was CM Punk. And CM Punk actually gained more mainstream attention when he left and tried his UFC career as well. And that didn't really work out for him, but that's another side topic. CM Punk had mainstream attention, and they let him walk. Daniel Bryan didn't have mainstream attention, but he was starting to gain some following, and people were starting to figure out who he was because he was becoming very popular amongst WWE fans, and that was kind of spreading a little bit more. But he wasn't mainstream, but he was gaining popularity. But they have no wrestler relatively close to that situation. I mean, Roman Reigns would be the closest one, and he is in nowhere near the same conversation as John Cena or Brock Lesnar. They have nobody to replace these guys. And when you have no stars on your show, it affects every single area of your product. It affects your TV ratings. It affects your Monday Night Raw, your Tuesday Night SmackDown. It affects your pay-per-view buys or your network buys. It also affects WrestleMania. It affects so many things. It affects the purchase of merchandise. It affects everything in your entire business that wrestling is about. Without stars in wrestling, you are going to be making a severe amount less of money today. And I know people will bring up the numbers that wrestling's making more now. Yeah, that's because they have a WWE Network. And the funny thing about the WWE Network is people aren't necessarily buying the WWE Network to buy it because they want to see the new SummerSlam. They want to see SummerSlam 1998. That's why they're buying, or, they want to see the Attitude Era. They want to see the older stuff that they grew up on, not necessarily today's wrestling. I guarantee you that. So the first thing is they have no stars and they have nobody to really replace them with. Going to the guys that they could replace them with, that they've had opportunities to push, but they haven't really done anything. I think Braun Strowman is getting to a level that he is really starting to become popular amongst WWE wrestling fans. And if they push him, and if they give him enough of a push, this guy could be the guy to replace Brock Lesnar. Roman Reigns. The thing about Roman Reigns is I think everybody thinks that he should turn heel. And if he did, I feel like he would gain even more popularity. But they have their whole deal with Roman Reigns, and it is what it is. A lot of people hate him a lot in the wrestling community, but a lot of casual fans like Roman Reigns because of the way that he looks, because of the way that he wrestles. So, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman are probably the ones. They've also had opportunities with guys like Bray Wyatt. I think The Miz is a guy that mainstream fans like, but he's not necessarily known to mainstream fans. Randy Orton is also a guy that mainstream fans probably know. Like, if you're my age, you probably know who Randy Orton is. But if you're like my dad's age, you probably don't know who Randy Orton is unless you have a son that watches wrestling or you saw the RKO videos on Facebook. Like, a lot of people our age rather know Randy Orton because of the RKO, or they know him because they used to know wrestling when they were younger, and that's why they know Randy Orton. But even Randy Orton is leaving soon. There's a lot of wrestlers that are, they don't have any stars. Guys like Finn Balor, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, all these guys are, they're not mainstream at all. And no casual fans like these guys. They are guys that the wrestling fan enjoys. And I don't even enjoy some of those guys on that list. But there are wrestling fans that love these guys, but the mainstream audience doesn't like these guys. And when you have no mainstream attention, your entire product suffers, as I stated. And what I can compare this to is a couple of sports that come to mind when it comes to mainstream attention. The NFL's always going to succeed. The NBA is always going to succeed. Major League Baseball is always going to succeed to a certain degree. Those three sports are always going to succeed. Even the NHL to a certain degree is always going to succeed because certain athletes come around that are so good that they become popular. There are other talents or superstars, I would say, that aren't as good but become huge superstars because of their personalities, and the sport really showcases that. But like Chad Johnson was never the best football player in the world or the best receiver in the league, but he was such a personality that people loved him, and he had a following because of that. So that's an example. But sports that I would say that are really like wrestling are golf and tennis. And you saw a huge rise in golf when Tiger Woods was at the top of his game. When Tiger Woods was at the top of his game and he was ripping shit up, everybody was watching golf just to see Tiger Woods play. The same thing with tennis. When Nadal or Federer are there, a lot of people will tune in just to watch Federer because he's probably the greatest tennis player of all time. Now, I'm not saying that I do that or you might not do that, but a lot more sports fans in general will tune into a tennis match if Nadal or Federer are playing. That's just a fact. If two normal guys or Joes that people don't know, maybe they're really good at tennis, but nobody really knows them because they don't have a big brand, they're not going to watch them. You know, like maybe I think that some wrestlers in WWE are really good. Like, I'm a big fan of Bray Wyatt, but he doesn't have mainstream attraction, and a mainstream fan that doesn't watch wrestling every week isn't going to tune in to see Bray Wyatt. They're going to tune in to see Brock Lesnar and John Cena. So that's my point on that. The next point is selling your network shows. So I talked about how it impacts everything. One of the biggest thing it impacts is selling your network shows. And what I'm talking about is your network pay-per-views most importantly. And they're not even really pay-per-views to me. They're just kind of network specials because they aren't pay-per-views because you have to buy a network. But how are you going to sell the casual fan your pay-per-view anymore when the main event's going to be Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe instead of John Cena versus Brock Lesnar or John Cena versus whoever? You know what I mean? So how are you going to sell that to a fan of casual, like a casual entertainment fan that watches The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones? How are you going to sell that fan, or a fan that's a fan of the NBA and the NFL? How are you going to sell that network when nobody knows who Finn Balor is? You know what I mean? And that also has to do with, like, when Brock Lesnar comes on these random Balls of Fire pay-per-views, he makes them so much more must-see. When John Cena comes on these random Night of Champion pay-per-views, they become way more must-see. Without those guys, the pay-per-views don't become must-see. And you're relying on these guys to get pay-per-view buys and network purchases for you. And without those guys, people aren't going to go out of their way to buy the network to see them wrestle or to see the event happen. So that's my thing with that. You're still going to have older fans and even maybe occasionally the rare casual fan who comes across, near WrestleMania season and buys it just to watch WrestleMania. Like a lot of fans that are older that I know watch just for WrestleMania, and that's still going to happen, and maybe even the Royal Rumble. But other events aren't going to have the same success without these names because they don't have the same value that was given to them a long time ago, back in the 80s or the 90s, where everyone knows what WrestleMania is. Most people know what the Royal Rumble is, and a lot of people knows what SummerSlam is. So it's going to really hurt your average network buy. Then you go to the TV ratings, which are already suffering. You're not going to have that spark in TV ratings anymore. For Monday Night Raw, when you need a spark and you call on Brock Lesnar, you're no longer going to get that because Brock Lesnar's in the UFC. Who's going to provide you that spark? It's not going to be Rusev. It's not going to be Kevin Owens. These guys aren't known. And I love Rusev, but he's not known to the average Joe. He's not known to my mom. My mom knows who John Cena is. My mom knows who The Rock is. A huge issue with WWE, and I brought it up a number of times, they cater way too much to the diehard wrestling fan. They cater way too much to this fan, and they're no longer catering to the mainstream fan that watches Game of Thrones, and they're not trying to attract that person anymore. And that is a result of not having stars in wrestling. And without those stars, you're not sparking Monday Night Raw. You're damn sure not sparking SmackDown Live. You might get a person that turns over to Raw from Monday Night Football and is like, oh, I used to watch Raw, and you might get that average person every once in a while. But you're not going to get these people that are like going out of their way to be like, oh, I heard Lesnar's on Raw tonight, and I'm going to tune in at the beginning of the show to see what happens. What are they going to say now? I'm going to tune into Shinsuke Nakamura? They don't even know who that is. They wouldn't even say that because they don't know the name. There you go. So, my question is, who's next in line? And then the last point I have for this video is they're running out of WrestleMania Dream matches. It's going to be harder to sell Mania tickets now. It's going to be harder to sell Mania. I know Mania is Mania, guys, and I've been to 2 of them, but it's going to be harder to sell Mania because you don't have dream matches. A huge selling point for last year's WrestleMania was Goldberg. A huge WrestleMania selling point was Lesnar Goldberg. A huge selling point was Undertaker. Without those guys, how are you selling the amount of people WrestleMania? You're running out of wrestlers that provide dream matches because you're running out of people that have mainstream appeal. And that's a huge issue right now in WWE. I hope they fix it. I hope people come up. I hope wrestlers come out of nowhere and gain mainstream attention. I hope WWE doesn't suffer because of it. But I'm telling you, man, Lesnar and Cena, without them, WWE is going to suffer in the ratings, in the network buys, at WrestleMania, and everywhere else. It's not a good time to be a wrestling fan. And it's actually funny because legitimately people would call Cena Super Cena, but he's legitimately been Super Cena for the WWE to put asses in the seats on occasion when they've asked him to. And Brock Lesnar's legitimately been the beast because he's been the beast of pay-per-view and network buys. That's just how I feel. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you're a wrestling fan like myself, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and we also do the network specials. Check us out here on The Bottom Line View. Leave a like, subscribe. It's Mitch. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know how you feel about this topic below. Is WWE going to suffer without Lesnar and Cena? I damn sure think so. Peace.